This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds Eric, Kuzno, Bryce, and myself battling it out to see who's going to win. Today's game has Eric playing Teysa Karlov, keeping Zulaport Cutthroat, Arcane Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, War Room, Caves of Koilos, a Swamp, and Castle Lochthwain. Kuzno is playing his Sidisi deck and has the Companion of Gyruda, keeping Phyrexian Metamorph, Culling Ritual, Satyr Wayfinder, Altered Ego, Choked Estuary, Vineglimmer Snarl, and a Bayou. Bryce has dusted off his Animar deck, keeping Verdant Catacombs, Tanazir Quandrix, Hydroid Crassus, Nylea God of the Hunt, Shaman of the Great Hunt, Wormcoil Engine, and Birds of Paradise. I'm still testing and tweaking my Nahiri deck, keeping Tashar Ancestor's Apostle, Zira the Dawnwalker, Shadowspear, Boros Signet, Sacred Peaks, Reckless Handling, and the Snow-Covered Plains. Eric wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Swamp. I play a tap Sacred Peaks. Kuzno draws and plays a Choked Estuary, which comes in tapped. Bryce draws, playing a Verdant Catacomb and cracking it, losing 1 for a Tropical Island. He taps that for a Birds of Paradise and passes. Eric has a Castle Lochthwain for turn and pays 2 for an Arcane Signet. I play Snow-Covered Plains and cast Boros Signet. Kuzno draws and plays a Vineglimmer Snarl, revealing a Bayou so it comes in untapped. He then plays Phantasmal Image, copying Bryce's Birds of Paradise, and passing. Bryce draws, but without drawing a second land, has to pass. Eric's got a Caves of Koilos, and then plays Talisman of Hierarchy. He then taps it and his last remaining land to help cast Zulaport Cutthroat. I draw and play Command Tower. I then cast a Reckless Handling, going to find a Lightning Greaves, and then randomly have to discard a card. I pitch Zirda to it, and I then cast the Lightning Greaves and pass. Kuzno draws and plays the Bayou he revealed last turn. He then casts Sidisi and mills 3 as she enters, but doesn't hit a creature, and just passes after that. Bryce draws and plays a Breeding Pool, shocking himself, and then casts Animar and passes. Eric draws and plays Corehaven. He then plays out Teysa and passes to me. I've got a Slayer's Stronghold, and I then cast Pia Consul of Revival, and once she's resolved, a Shadowspear as well. I then gear her up with the Shadowspear and the Lightning Greaves, and pass. Kuzno draws and plays a Satyr Wayfinder, hitting 4 lands as he mills them, and plays a Forbidden Orchard for turn. He then pays 3 to put Gyruda into his hand, and then moves to combat. Kuzno swings Sidisi at Bryce, milling 3 and hitting a creature, which makes him a zombie token. Bryce then blocks with Animar since it has pro-black, and after that, Kuzno passes. Bryce draws but still can't find a land, but at least is able to cast a Wheel of Fortune, making everyone discard their hand and then draw a fresh 7. He draws a land at least, with an island, and he plays it and passes. Eric's got a Plains for turn and casts Whisper and passes. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain for turn, and then cast Nahiri thanks to a reduced cost, and go to combat. I swing Pia at Bryce and exile my top card of my library from Nahiri's trigger, which is Brunner Battlehammer, which I unfortunately can't cast this turn. Bryce then takes the hit, and I follow up with a Stoneforge Mystic in my second main phase, going to grab a Sword of Hearth and Home, and I pass turn. Kuzno draws and plays a Polluted Delta. He cracks it, losing 1 to find an Underground Sea, and then casts Wonder. He then finishes up his first main phase with a Farseek, finding a land, and then moves to combat. He swings again at Bryce with Sidisi, milling 3 and hitting another creature to make a zombie token, while Bryce once more blocks with Animar. With nothing else, Kuzno passes. Bryce draws and plays a Lotus Cobra. He then plays his Polluted Delta and cracks it for Volcanic Island, getting 2 landfall triggers from the Cobra and making 2 green. He uses the green to cast a Morph creature, adding his second counter to Animar, and then plays Oracle of Moldiah. For his second land for turn, Bryce then plays a mountain, making another green, and is able to help cast Borniclex, Monstrous Raider, adding another counter to Animar, and with nothing else, Bryce passes. Eric draws and plays a command tower. He then casts Revel in Riches and passes. I draw and play a Needleverge Pathway, and then activate the Stoneforge Mystic for the 2 to help cheat out a Hammer of Nazan for a reduced cost, and as it enters, it gets to equip itself for free onto Nahiri. I follow that up with a Colossus Hammer, also free equipping it onto Nahiri thanks to the hammer, and then move the Shadow Spear and Lightning Greaves onto her. Going to combat, I swing Nahiri at Bryce, exiling a Plains off the top, and Bryce soaks up 5 of the damage with Animar, but still takes 13 commander damage. I gain 13 as well from lifelink, and after that, I pass. Kuzno draws and plays an island. He then plays out Liliana, Dreadhorde General, who only comes in with 3 loyalty counters because of Vorinclex. He follows up with a Voyaging Satyr, and then upticks Liliana, which actually doesn't add loyalty, but at least makes him a zombie token. Going to combat, Kuzno swings Sidisi at me, milling 3 cards, and he gets a zombie token, and I then take the hit for 3. With nothing else, he passes to Bryce. Bryce draws and plays a Ketria Triome, which comes in tapped, and then an Ancient Ziggurat, making 2 blue off the Lotus Cobra. He then plays a Cloudstone Curio, and follows up with Sun Quan, Lord of Wu, and bounces his Morph creature with the Curio trigger. Bryce then plays the Morph creature for more counters onto Animar, which bounces the Birds of Paradise after it floats a green. Once that resolves, Bryce then replays the birds and bounces the recast Morph creature and then recast the Morph creature, adding more and more counters onto Animar thanks to Vorinclex and Animar's ability. He continues to do this for as much green mana as he has. Bryce casts a Platinum Angel and then moves to combat. Bryce then swings his lethal 23 power Animar at me, but Eric decides to save the day with Corehaven, and during his end step, Eric sacrifices 2 spirits that he'd received from Kuzno from the Forbidden Orchard to Whisper, and he reanimates a Mirkwood Bats and drains us for 4 from the Zulapur Cutthroat triggers. Eric draws and plays a Fetid Heath. He then goes to combat, swinging everything at Kuzno. Kuzno blocks the bats with Wonder and puts 2 zombies in front of Teysa, and trades the Satyr Wayfinder with the Zulapur Cutthroat. With the creatures dying, Eric gets to make 8 treasures and once more drains us for 4 from the Zulapur Cutthroat triggers, and we all then take an extra 8 from the Mirkwood Bats. Eric then cracks 8 treasures to remove all of Bryce's life total, and then casts Farewell, exiling everything but enchantments, to remove the Platinum Angel so Bryce gets taken out. He then recasts Teysa, and plays a Ministrant of Obligation and then a Reassembling Skeleton. With nothing else, Eric passes. I draw and play a Sword of Hearth and Home, and then a tapped Sacred Foundry. I cycle a Secluded Step to draw a card, and then cast a Fighter class and go and tutor for Swiftfoot Boots, and pass turn. Kuzno draws and plays a Gripcast, making a Spirit token from tapping the Forbidden Orchard. He then upticks Liliana to make a zombie token, and replays Sidisi, milling 3, one of which is a creature, and he gets to make a zombie token. Kuzno then finishes things up with the Sylvan Caryatid and passes. Eric draws and plays a Vault of Champions. He activates Cathal Lochthwain to draw a card and lose some life, and passes. I've got a Ghost Quarter for turn, and then cast the Swiftfoot Boots. I then recast Nahiri, and equip the Spirit with the Boots and go at Eric. Since it doesn't have flying, Eric is able to trade with the Reassembling Skeleton, plus makes 2 treasure tokens as my spirit dies. I pass after that. Kuzno draws and plays a Swamp. He plays out a Master Biomancer and then uptakes Liliana, making a zombie token with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Going to combat, he swings Sidisi and 2 zombies at Eric. and mills 3, making a zombie token. Eric then blocks the zombies and takes 3, and Eric makes 4 treasure tokens as Stuff dies. In his post-combat main phase, Kuzno plays Vizier of Many Faces, copying Teysa, and then passes. During his end step, Eric returns a reassembling skeleton, and we move to Eric's turn. Eric draws and plays a swamp. He then plays Open the Graves, and once more activates Castle Lochthwain to draw a card. Going to combat, he swings the Ministrant at Liliana, which gets blocked by a 4/4 zombie token. It gets taken out, and Eric makes 4 spirits and 2 zombies as it dies. After that, he passes to me. I draw and level up fighter class, and then equip my sword and my boots to Nahiri for free. I follow that up with a Bladehold Warwhip, which I also move to Nahiri. And I then move to combat, swinging her at Eric. I exile a snow-covered mountain off the top, and Eric then blocks Nahiri with a reassembling skeleton. I then pass, and during my end step, Kuzno uses Assassin's Trophy to blow up the Revel in Riches. Kuzno draws and plays a forest. He plays Green Warden of Marassa, getting back Assassin's Trophy. He then follows it up with a Progenitor Mimic, and has it come in as a copy of the Master Biomancer, and then goes to combat. He swings everything at Eric, and makes another zombie token from Sidisi after milling 3. Eric blocks the Cryptghast with a zombie, and the Teysa copy with 2 zombies, and jumps to the larger 2 zombies as well. Eric also activates Corehaven to negate the commander damage from Sidisi, and ends up taking nothing in the end. In his post-combat main phase, Kuzno then uptakes Liliana to make a zombie token, and passes, and during his end step, Eric once more brings back the reassembling skeleton. Eric draws and plays a swamp. He then plays a Woe Strider, and activates a Castle Lochthwain again to draw a card. He then moves to combat, swinging 4 spirits at Liliana, and passes after they connect. I draw, and cast a Lockset on Warhammer, and then equip it onto Nahiri. I activate Slayer's Stronghold on Nahiri, and swing her at Eric. I exile a Lion Sash from her on attack trigger, and before moving to blocks, Eric sacrifices Teysa to the Woe Strider, making 2 more zombie tokens and gets to scry 1. He then throws 3 zombie tokens and the skeleton in front of Nahiri, but still takes the rest. In my post-combat main phase, I cast the Lion Sash, and I then pass. During my end step, Kuzno casts the Assassin's Trophy he just returned to hand, and targets my Lion Sash. In response, I activate it to exile Kuzno's Timeless Witness, and it gets destroyed, and I go to find a land. Kuzno's upkeep has him making another Master Biomancer on his upkeep, and he adds even more counters to it, and draws. He then goes to combat, and swings his zombies, Sidisi, and Green Warden at Eric, milling 3 cards, one of which is a Narcomoeba, which allows it to return from the graveyard to the field, getting a bunch of counters, and Kuzno gets to make a zombie token. Eric chumps the Green Warden and a zombie, and then Corehaven's the 8/8 zombie token, but still takes the rest. In his post-combat main phase, Kuzno follows up with Filth, and then plays a Sylvan Library, and a Sakura Tribe Elder, which thanks to all the Master Biomancers on the field, is absolutely massive. He passes after that. Eric draws and plays a Godless Shrine untapped, taking 2. He then plays a Village Rites, sacrificing a spirit, and responds to his own spell in the stack by activating Castle Lochthwain to draw a card before his hand gets out of hand. He then draws 3 total, but with nothing else, has to pass. I draw and play an Inventor's Fair, cracking it and going to find a Sword of Feast and Famine. I then cast the sword and equip it onto Nahiri, and then cast a Beamtown Beatstick and equip it as well. Going to combat, Kuzno sacrifices his Sakura Tribe Elder to try and draw an answer from Liliana and get a land. He doesn't find one, but casts a Growth Spiral to draw again. Having found no answer, I move to declare attacks and swing Nahiri at him, and thanks to Menace and the protections, he can't block it and takes lethal off the first hit. I also get to exile my top card, and Eric sacrifices some spirit tokens during my end step to scry, and I pass to him. Eric draws and activates Cathalochlane for another draw. He then recasts Teysa and swings his 2 flyers at me, dealing 2 and gaining 2. In his post-combat main phase, Eric plays Owl, and I respond by casting Path to Exile and target the Woe Strider. Since he no longer has a sacrifice outlet, and having lethal commander damage on board, Eric knows when he's beat and scoops it up. Game review time. This game was 58 minutes and 37 seconds, and it was pretty action-packed. Between my aggressive deck, those explosive Animar turns, Teysa Karlov basically draining the table for a ton of life in one go, and Sidisi having a massive army of zombies, not to mention a huge Sakura Tribe Elder, there's a lot going on. Eric was doing a lot with Teysa Karlov and the double on death triggers, and I'm actually kinda surprised that he saved me. The turn where he activated the Core Haven to save me, he justified doing it by saying that he needed my help to take out Bryce, since Bryce's commander had protection from basically his entire deck. I think all that changed as soon as he drew a card though, because it seemed like he was easily able to take out Bryce either way. Speaking of Bryce, considering he kept a 1-land hand and 1 manage orc, he actually got there in the end, with a lot of help probably from that Wheel of Fortune. I had an Animar deck for a long time before I shifted to Magus Lucia Kane, and the deck can be incredibly explosive, and as you saw, as soon as Cloudstone Curio came out, things get really wonky. It's always fun to see classic commanders coming back, and I love Sidisi. Pairing her up with Gyruda seems like a no-brainer to me, and Kuzno's deck has a bit of a reputation from sometimes just going oops, everyone mills out because of clones and Gyruda. Unfortunately for him, it seems like he lost a lot of steam when that farewell resolved and he lost his graveyard, and I think that's a lot of what allowed me to steal a win. Nahiri probably had no right to be able to do as well as she did, and I felt like I rebuilt really well considering that all the cards I exiled with her, except for the Lion Sash, were basically unplayable. I'm still continuing to test and try her out, and I'm hoping to try out some more of those equipment-based creatures that come in, the reconfigure ones from Neon Dynasty. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.